All right. Good morning, everybody. It is Sunday morning. It is week 30 of our study of the book of Genesis. And we'll start with prayer, do a quick review, and then get into chapter 48 today. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this time and place, for the opportunity to come together and get into your word. Father, we invite you today to be here, to be present, to guide us as we go through this text. We ask that you make it more than just a study, that you make this something that gives us insight into who you are, because you haven't called us to be students, but sons and daughters. Father, we want to make this an opportunity to meet you and to meet with you, and see more than just letters on a page, but to see your fingerprints, your personality, your character. We want to know you better. So, Father, we invite you, and we are grateful and ask that you bless us, and we give you all honor, all glory, and all praise in Jesus' name. Amen. So, again, just a very quick recap of the first 20 weeks. If you're watching on the video, pause and zoom in, I guess. Then week 21 through 29, we've got from chapter 34 to 47, which brings us to the review for 29. Genesis 47 was Joseph introducing his brothers to Pharaoh. Then he introduced Jacob. Two notable things there. One, that Jacob, who was the foreigner, came in and blessed Pharaoh, which is unusual, and that it's always the greater blesses the lesser. And Jacob is old. Pharaoh comments, "How old are you?" And Jacob tells him that he's 130 at that point. Joseph continues to administrate the famine issues in Egypt. He gets them through that and ends up purchasing all the cattle, livestock, all the land, all the people of Egypt, so that by the time the famine is actually over, all of Egypt belongs. It's the personal property of Pharaoh. It's like the land, the people, everything. He's moved things around. He's reorganized the whole country. It all belongs to Pharaoh personally, with the exception of the priests who received a gift and an allotment of food from Pharaoh, which ends up playing a part later on in the politics and other issues in Exodus. The people of Israel, or Jacob's descendants, were all settled in the land of Goshen. And we see that as Jacob is nearing his death, he made Joseph swear to bury his bones in the promised land, the land that God promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So that's how chapter 47 kind of wraps up. It's just, it wasn't like he was on his deathbed, but he knew it wasn't long, and he wanted to make sure that he got that. There's a lot of setting things in order in that chapter and the next few. So he basically said, "This isn't home. Don't bury me here. When I die, make sure that I'm buried in the land of my fathers." Again, our three questions: where's the God of love in this passage? Just be looking for evidence of his love. Why did he preserve this? We believe that the Bible is something that God has preserved, something that he inspired. So there's a reason it's there. It's important for us to find out what that is. And then again, how does this apply to our lives? And that takes us to chapter 48. So Genesis 48, starting verse 1. "Now it came about after these things," and that's all the stuff that's like settled Israel and his family. Joseph introduced everybody, and Jacob has said, bury my bones there, and all these things. Joseph was told, "Behold, your father is sick." So he took his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, with him. When it was told to Jacob, "Behold, your son Joseph has come to you," Israel collected his strength and sat up in the bed. Then Jacob said to Joseph, "God Almighty appeared to me at Luz, in the land of Canaan, and blessed me. And he said to me, Behold, I will make you fruitful and numerous, and I will make you a multitude of peoples, and I will give this land to your descendants after you as an everlasting possession. Now your two sons, who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt, are mine. Ephraim and Manasseh shall be mine, as Reuben and Simeon are. But your children that you have fathered after them shall be yours. They shall be called by the names of their brothers in their inheritance. Now I'll pause right there. So Joseph has been told that his father is sick. He's pretty much in his deathbed here. And so Joseph comes, brings his sons. Now this isn't like, it kind of reads like it is, but it's very unlikely that this is the first time that Jacob has met Ephraim and Manasseh. So some of the language that we're going to see as this progresses is, I think, more formalized, and because he's about to pronounce a blessing. But in this, he said, now, your two sons, who were born before I came here, they're mine. Now, he's not taking them from them. What he's saying is, like, I'm adopting them as my own. They're going to be just as much mine as Reuben and Simeon are. So that, and again, he goes down here, he says that they shall be called by the names of their brothers in their inheritance. Well, no, that's the other ones. Sorry. But when it comes time for inheritance from Jacob, instead of the inheritance just going to Joseph, he's giving another portion to Ephraim and Manasseh. So Joseph is basically getting a double blessing of inheritance because his sons have been pulled up and called one of the sons of Israel. As we go on, later on, you see like all the tribes of Israel listed. It's interesting because they always talk about the 12 tribes of Israel, but there's a lot of confusion about, well, like if you count Ephraim and Manasseh as opposed to Joseph, then there's actually 13. But then you have, there is occasionally reference to the tribe of Joseph. When they include Levi, they do this like tribe of Joseph, but Levi eventually gets set apart as set unto the Lord. So Levi doesn't get an inheritance later on, so the inheritance spreads out among the 12 remaining, which include Ephraim and Manasseh. But as far as this story is concerned, what Jacob is saying is, I'm giving you a double portion by making your sons my sons. Now, every son that Joseph has after this, they'll be counted as Joseph's sons. But Ephraim and Manasseh, in particular, kind of as I won't say like a reimbursement, but Joseph disappeared, he was gone. And when he came back, he had multiplied. So when he returned, Jacob is saying, you've returned to me as more, and I've lost a lot of time with you. Now let me give more to you and yours. Verse 7, now as for me, when I came from Padan, Rachel died, to my sorrow, in the land of Canaan on the journey, when there was still some distance to go to Ephrath. I buried her on the way to Ephrath, that is, Bethlehem. When Israel saw Joseph's sons, he said, who are these? It's not that he didn't know who they were. I mean, his eyesight was bad, so he may be like, who's that with you? Or it could be also because he's about to pronounce a blessing, there could be some ceremony, some formal acknowledgement going on. Because remember, like, Jacob lived 17 years after he arrived. So the odds that he hasn't met Ephraim and Manasseh is zero. So I just wanted to clarify that, because if you don't stop and answer, like, why doesn't he know who they are? I thought he was, and there's partly it could be his sight, partly it could be a formal thing. And Joseph said to his father, they are my sons, whom God has given me here. So Jacob said, bring them to me, please, so that I may bless them. Now the eyes of Israel were so dim from age that he could not see. And Joseph brought them close to him, and he kissed them and embraced them. And Israel said to Joseph, I never expected to see your face, and behold, God has let me see your children as well. I think this is an interesting turn of phrase, because he just got done saying that his eyes are bad. But I've seen them. I've gotten to witness their life. Then Joseph took them from his knees and bowed with his face to the ground. Now, I want to point out that the took them from his knees is like took them from in front of him. It's an expression. In fact, a lot of times it has to do with to do with ownership. Like if you take a son from someone else's knees and put them on your knees, it's symbolic of like adopting or taking them as your own, or claiming them. But I think there's a lot of other, like the knee, the thigh, all of this has a lot of symbolism for their culture. But he's got them here, and he brings them there and sets them in front of Jacob, and then he bowed with his face to the ground. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim with his right hand toward Israel's left, so his right hand, and then Israel's left. So he's setting them up with Manasseh at Jacob's right hand and Ephraim on his left hand, so that he could reach out and bless them. Right hand for the eldest, left hand for the younger. Just because the right hand was the right hand is the right hand of favor, and the greater blessing is done that way. But Ephraim with his right hand toward Israel's left, and Manasseh with his left hand toward Israel's right, and brought them close to him. But Israel reached out his right hand and placed it on the head of Ephraim, who was the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh's head, crossing his hands. So he had Manasseh and he had Ephraim, but instead of doing this, he deliberately reached over like this. I mean, there's no mistake here. There's no accident. He's crossed his arms in order to do this. And he blessed Joseph, and that's interesting. He's placing his hands on the sons and blesses Joseph. The God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the boys. And may my name live on in them, and the names of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and may they grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. I want to pause there, because I want to point out that when he says that God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day, it's not a casual expression. I mean, like everything that a shepherd is, Jacob is from a long line of shepherds. In fact, that's their identity in Egypt. But a shepherd is more than just a cattle driver. I mean, sheep need special attention. They have to be led. They have to be coaxed. They have to be watched. Pastor Gino's done like a whole thing on, I think it's a study of Psalm 23 from a shepherd's perspective. And there's some rich things, but a shepherd is a caregiver of sheep. So it's saying a lot here when he calls God his shepherd.
Yeah, he devotes a lot of attention.
Yes. And then again, this is a blessing, but I think this is also the ceremony in which he actually takes them as his own, because of this. And the names of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, would be on them as well. And may they grow into the multitude in the midst of the earth. Now, when Joseph saw that his father placed his right hand on Ephraim's head, it displeased him. And he grasped his father's hand to move it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. And Joseph said to his father, "Not so, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Place your right hand on his head." But his father refused and said, "I know, my son, I know. He will also become a people, and he will also be great. However, his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his descendants shall become a multitude of nations." So he blessed them that day, saying, "By you Israel will pronounce blessing, saying, may God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh." And so he put Ephraim before Manasseh. So Manasseh was Joseph's firstborn, but Israel took Ephraim as the elder of the two, put him higher in the ranking there. Not really surprising. I mean, it was obviously to Joseph, but if you look at the history of the sons, Abraham was technically a second son. Not Abraham. Actually, Abraham was. He was the younger of the ones. But Ishmael was born first, but God chose Isaac, chose him before Ishmael was born. But then Jacob and Esau was the elder, and Jacob was the younger, but God chose Jacob over Esau and put him above. So we see this going again. Presumably it was at the inspiration of God, and not just because he's got a soft spot for younger brothers. especially since Joseph and Benjamin are in the same situation, and you never see him do that with them. But it is worthy of note that God is not always, in fact, seems very infrequently, is he concerned with how people's standing sits based on mankind's standards. For example, David was the youngest of 8. He was the 8th son, I think, and many others. You'll see the first king of Israel was not one of the greater tribes. He was from the tribe of Benjamin. And there's just all kinds of different. God isn't looking for the. He's got a different set of standards, and so he basically says, "I'm going to." Well, he said it to Moses. I'm going to bless the ones I want to bless, and I'll curse the ones I want to curse. I'll punish. I'll forgive, but I'm God, so I'm going to do things my own way. So we see in this one more time where there was an expectation, but God's got a different point of view, a different a way of proceeding. Then Israel said to Joseph, "Behold, I am about to die, but God will be with you and bring you back to the land of your fathers. And I give you one portion more than your brothers," again the 2 sons, "which I took from the hand of the Amorite with my sword and my bow." So that wraps up chapter 48. And now, then Jacob summoned his sons and said, now I want to pause. This makes it sound like it's part of the same meeting, which is possible, but the word "then" there just means that after that, next in the story, but this may not have happened the same day. It could have, but it's not necessarily the case. Because it doesn't say he summoned his other sons. It says he summoned his sons. So at some point afterwards, he summons all his sons together. "Assemble yourselves so that I may tell you what will happen to you in the days to come." Let me just tap that. Or in the end of days, that could be a little bit confusing because of other prophecies. But, "Gather together and listen, sons of Jacob. Yes, listen to Israel your father." Again, you start seeing the parallel thing. This is going to be something that he's going to want them to memorize. This is a patriarchal, I'm not going to say blessing, but it's telling them what's coming. And I'm going to be diving into some of the words used here because some of it's not very clear in this translation. "Gather together and listen, sons of Jacob. Yes, listen to Israel, your father." And I'm going to leave that one alone for right now. "Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might and the beginning of my strength, preeminent in dignity and preeminent in power, firstborn. Uncontrollable as water, you shall not have preeminence." It's like you were the beginning, you were the start, you were my first son, you were ahead in dignity, you were ahead in power, you had everything, but you're as uncontrollable as water. You will no longer be preeminent. So basically he's stripping him of firstborn status. "Because you went up to your father's bed, then you defiled it." And then this is like the side, it's like he went up to my couch. It's almost like he stops and goes, anyway. And that's all he says. Oh my goodness, can you just imagine? I mean, your father, the patriarch, Israel, is pronouncing the blessings. Yours is the first name he mentions, preeminent, 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 no more, calls you out on something that happened 37 years ago. These guys hold on. I mean, they really hold on. Then he moves on. "Simeon and Levi are brothers. Their swords are implements of violence. May my soul not enter into their council. May my glory not be united with their assembly. For in their anger they killed men, and in their self-will they lamed oxen. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will scatter them in Jacob and disperse them among Israel." Again, This is probably primarily referring to how they treated the people in Shechem, how they made this arrangement and then went in and murdered every man in the town of Shechem because of what was done to Dinah. But he is basically saying, once again, I didn't have anything to do with that, and I don't want any part of that kind of behavior. Again, this is 40 some years, maybe 50 years back, and so he's saying, like, I still don't have any part of this, and I still am against this behavior. This is wrong, and this type of behavior should be cursed. And because of this in their nature, they'll be scattered. They won't be unified, especially because that's like their assembly together. He won't be united with them, their council together. Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't appear to me that he's holding a grudge as much as he's not willing to let it be forgotten.
Right. He's condemning the behavior and the policy.
Fallout, I guess.
He is absolutely making sure they understand that what they did is still wrong.
Can't be swept under the rug.
And using them as an example, again, this is something that is being set up as his last will and testimony kind of thing.
And
But
it's a standard for us
yes,
to this day.
and he's condemning behavior that is unacceptable, and it should be condemned. And by putting this as his last words to his sons, they are the patriarchs of their individual tribes. But the last thing that Israel says to his sons is, this behavior is unacceptable. Do better. This is going down in the creed of what their culture will be. And disperse them among Israel. As for you, Judah, your brothers shall praise you. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons shall bow down to you. Judah is a lion's cub. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He crouches, he lies down as a lion, and as a lion, who dares to stir him up? The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until Shiloh comes, and to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. He ties his foal to the vine, and his donkey's colt to the choice vine. He washes his garments in wine, and his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are dull from wine, and his teeth white from milk. Now I'm going to go back over, because there's a bunch here. Clearly there's a change in the attitude from how he was dealing with the other sons. But we've also noticed in the last couple of chapters, several chapters, that Judah continually steps up. Even when Judah messes up, when he's called on it, he steps up. When someone was sent on ahead to meet Joseph, it was Judah, not Reuben. It was Judah. When they had to take Benjamin along, it was Judah who made the promise to Jacob that was part of Jacob consenting. And when Joseph pretended to condemn Benjamin, Judah put himself up as a sacrifice. Judah, over and over and over again, is shown he's the one who has acted as the eldest, and he is being basically set up as the eldest. The scepter shall not depart, the staff shall always be between the feet. He's declaring him the preeminent one now. But also, this is a prophecy, this referring to the Messiah to come. This is the king, that the kingship would come through Judah.
It is a reign.
Yes. But also, this is what marks, we know up to this point, it's been Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now Jacob, Israel, is saying the line of the Redeemer of these 12/13, it's being singled out to Judah. And again, it's like the Judah, that's where the scepter will go. And we know that Judah is the line in which, and if people had paid attention to their own scriptures and writings, they would have realized that Saul was from the wrong tribe. But David was of the line of Judah. And then ultimately the Messiah would come through the line of David. And then we get the genealogies that will actually trace Jesus on both his physical, his birth side and his adoptive side. They both come back to David for 2 different lines, and through David to Judah. So that's there. But we also see that this is not just a declaration of what you're like or what's going to be or what's not going to be. This is he's declaring the preeminence of Judah as the firstborn, as having firstborn rights at this point. And then here's the scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet until Shiloh comes. Shiloh is, well, it means peace. It comes from the same root. It's closely related to shalom, which is the Hebrew word for peace, but not just peace, favor, welfare. It's all the good things of being basically nestled in the hand of God. Until Shiloh comes. But notice that Shiloh is capitalized here. This is more than just peace. This is the peace. This is a messianic reference. We also know that Jesus is called the Prince of Peace. And to him shall be the obedience of all of the peoples. And then we got more in here. Some of this is for Judah. Some of this is for the Messiah. He ties his foal to the vine and his donkey's colt to the choice vine. And this is all referencing just its richness. He washes his garments in wine. I mean, he's so wealthy he can splurge wine to the point where he can even wash his garments that way. Now, and his robes in the blood of grapes. That's again parallelism. This is not a great translation. His eyes are dull from wine. I have no idea why they decided to use this. I think it's a carryover from the King James.
They must have been drunk.
That's what it looks like, but that doesn't fit with the context. The original language translates better. His eyes are as dark as or darker than wine. They're the color of wine, which fits also better with and his teeth white for milk. It's talking about the color, not the sharpness or dullness or the brightness. So basically, his eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth are whiter than milk, or as white as milk. It's kind of there's symbolism here of of strength, of keenness, not dullness, which is again why, but also health and strength, richness, because you've got milk and wine. Basically, Jacob is happy with Judah, but again, there's also this promise of the Messiah to come.
It seems like there's a picture that he's trying to show, especially with the grapes, and the vines, and I can't grasp.
It would certainly.
A grapevine is full of individual grapes, representative of people, maybe. And then, the foal being tied to it. It's like he has the ability to draw people.
It's there is a lot more to this that I'm getting into. It's a lot more than this than what I'm prepared to get into. Yes, there's a lot of imagery here, a lot with the lion, but again with the vine. And then later on we see that Jesus is he's the vine, he's the vine, and the people are the branches, but God's the gardener. A grapevine that is not tended to is not productive. So that's part of this whole picture. Again, and we're seeing this especially in the latter half of Genesis, that donkeys they keep coming up. They keep getting specific mention. And I think they're also part of the reference to wealth and strength.
And they're like a support.
And yes, very much so. In fact, that's going to come in a little bit in one of the others. In fact, I think it's Issachar.
But the grapevine is very tough.
It's very, very, very strong. But also, I don't know, there's a lot of different things. What they actually intended, but what I can pull out, can't say that they're exactly the same. They might not even be similar. But I'm thinking of a donkey. If you tie a donkey to a fruitful vine, a donkey's going to eat everything that's close. He can afford to. There's just a lot of symbol of wealth and abundance and richness, both in personal health, but also richness in what he has and what he has to bring. Anyway, there's a lot more there. I'm going to have to go check it out myself to get more. I think I'm going to have to find some commentaries of people who've done that. Yeah, next time we do Genesis, I'll have more for you, no doubt. Next time we have 31 weeks to spare.
Well, it'll be on the other side next time.
Lord willing. Zebulun will reside at the seashore, and he shall be a harbor for ships, and his flank shall be toward Sidon. That's all he's got to say. I do want to point back. We talked about the italicized words last time, and I did look it up. And italicized words are words added for clarity. They're not in the original text, but they're just there for emphasis or to make sure that it's clear exactly what's being indicated. And he, like you could actually say, and he, a harbor for ships. You can follow that, but he shall be a harbor for ships is easier in English. And his flank toward Sidon, or his flank shall be toward Sidon. Okay, Issachar is a strong donkey, which in our culture and in our language, in various forms, that doesn't sound complimentary. But in this one, I think that it is. In fact, there's a donkey of bone. Another one is a raw-boned donkey. Again, in our English, that sounds very negative. But remember how highly the donkeys are thought of, how often they've been mentioned up to this point. I don't think they did that so that we would understand, but I think that the fact that they did that gives us these... It's complimentary. A donkey of bone, or a raw-boned donkey, is a donkey that works hard. That is the picture here is he's strong. So that he's lying down between the sheepfolds. When he saw that a resting place was good, and that the land was pleasant, he bowed his shoulder to carry burdens, and became a slave at forced labor. Now, again, I went over this several times, and I will say that the language in multiple translations, and even going back to the original, it means exactly what it says. It means he became a slave of forced labor. And that's a little disconcerting if you stick to looking just at this line. But if you back it up to the whole picture here, that he's a strong donkey who found a nice place to rest, there's an image here. It's not that Issachar is going to become a slave. It's that a donkey, a strong donkey, found a good resting place and was willing to bow his shoulder to become, to work hard. It's like he submitted to this because he found a good place. So Issachar is one who, like a strong donkey, when he finds that good place, he's willing to bow his shoulder, it's like get his shoulder up under the weight, and he'll carry the weight because it's worth it because of the place he'll find.
Isn't a donkey a protector of a herd or something like that?
Very often, yes, because donkeys, they do not tolerate, they don't tolerate dogs. And if you've ever seen the way a donkey handles a coyote, you know that that's brutal.
I saw pictures of a donkey killing a lion, mountain lion rather.
Right.
That was about to, I guess, jump on his owners.
They're fierce protectors. They're fierce in general.
I also see like a strong work ethics.
Oh, definitely. No.
From that.
And here's something that's important also, because donkeys have another reputation, and that's being extremely stubborn. I'll stop there. But this is that he's lying down. He's a protector, but he's finding a place of rest. He'll find a place where he's willing to submit to the labor necessary. So this is really actually a fairly positive overall picture here. I mean, when you first glance over it, if you're just skimming, you just kind of think that this is a reference to the slavery in Egypt. And I think that that's missing what he's actually saying here. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. That's an interesting phrase, because his people will be one of the tribes of Israel. So why specifically? But he's going to hold them to the standard of being of this. I mean, his identity as one of the tribes of Israel is significant. He's not, I'll just put it that way. And then, Dan shall be a serpent in the way, a horned viper in the path, that bites the horse's heels, so that its rider falls backwards. For your salvation I wait, Lord. I don't have any idea how to put a positive spin on this. He shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. That seems pretty positive. But then he shall be a serpent in the way, a horned viper in the path, that bites the horse's heels, so that its rider falls backwards. And then, in the middle of all this, after all these other ones, Jacob stops and says, for your salvation, I wait, Lord. It's almost like he just stops and has to pray to God.
He looked up as a defender. When he's in the way, he stops and attack.
Serpent has a negative. But he's a trap. He's a snare. He's something on the path. Now, if you put that in line with he's a judge, it's like you could look at it, and this is a possibility. You could look at it as this is how he'll be a judge, as he'll be there. He'll be an impedance in the road that will make people have to stop and consider where they're going. And if you don't consider, so that his rider falls backwards, it's like you better watch your step around Dan, or things are going to get upset. That's a possibility, and maybe the most.
Thinking like a judge in a courtroom.
Maybe, but I've heard of lawyers referred to like snakes, but never the judge before. But that's maybe. I like that one best, but just calling him a serpent and a horned viper. It's like, this is not the kind of family. People coming to see Dad as on his deathbed. This isn't really the way. Judah's like, hey, this is great, and everybody else is like, I got out of bed for this. For your salvation I wait, Lord. As for Gad, a band of raiders shall attack him, but he will attack at their heels. It's like people are going to underestimate Gad. They're going to raid him. They're going to think he's easy target. But when they're done, he's going to turn around and he's going to go right on their heels. That's all he gets. As for Asher, his food shall be rich, and he will yield royal delicacies. Now, another version of this was, and he shall make royal dainties. I'm not sure why someone thought that dainties was the way to go, but basically the idea is that he's going to have rich food, but it also he's going to be one who makes rich food. This is going to be, if you want to have a party, go eat at Asher's table because the food's going to be really good. He's going to be making food that's fit for kings. Is another way to translate royal dainties. Maybe, I don't know, doilies. I don't think it's doilies. He shall yield royal doilies. Dainties and doilies. Oh, heavens. Naphtali is a doe let loose. He utters beautiful words. Now, that one gets translated differently, and I don't really understand why. It's got to be idiomatic. But one way is Naphtali is a doe let loose, and then it refers to he utters beautiful words, or it says he has many fawns. He's lots of children. He's kind of a wild person, but there's beauty in his wildness. But I have no understanding at this point why it can be translated as he has many fawns or he utters beautiful words. This is one of the reasons why a literal translation is not always the best way to go. So it's just one of those things. I don't have an answer there. But both of those seem pretty positive. And then Joseph is a fruitful branch. A fruitful branch by a spring. Its branches hang over a wall. The archers provoke him and shot at him and were hostile toward him. This is an interesting parallel here. He's a fruitful branch. I mean, it's like he calls him a vine, and I'm trying to figure out why archers are shooting at a vine. But I'm thinking that I might be mixing the metaphors. The archers provoke him and shot at him and were hostile toward him. But his bow remained firm, and his arms were agile. From the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, from there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. From the God of your father who helps you, and by the Almighty who blesses you, with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lies beneath, blessings of the breast of the womb and of the womb. The blessings of your father have surpassed the blessings of my ancestors up to the furthest boundary of the everlasting hills. May they be on the head of Joseph and on the top of the head of the one distinguished among his brothers. Jacob likes Joseph. There's so much there. There is a hint here, or there may be a hint here. It may just be that life has been hard for Joseph. And it's an acknowledgement that he's been provoked, that he's been tried, he's been through hardship. I don't know if Jacob ever actually knew. There's no way that Benjamin didn't tell Jacob that his son sold Joseph into slavery at this point. But there were others that provoked him, but he remained strong. His arms were agile, and he's been blessed beyond. The family who has received the special attention of God, the blessings that Joseph has received have surpassed even that. And he blesses him with the blessings of all these things, above, below, all around, your father's blessings, my blessings, everything. Just blessed, blessed, blessed. May they all be on the head of Joseph. And then Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning he devours the prey, and in the evening he divides the spoils. Which is, again, let me just tap this one more time. A wolf that tears. Basically a ravenous wolf. So in the morning he devours the prey, and in the evening he just divides the spoils. This is somebody who goes out, he has something he wants, he goes out, he gets it, takes care of it in the morning, and then does. Goodness gracious! I mean, if your name starts with J, you're in good place with Jacob, but otherwise you're in trouble. Even Benjamin didn't. I mean, I don't guess this is negative, but I mean, he got 5 paragraphs for Joseph, and the Messiah coming through Judah, and Benjamin's a ravenous wolf. It's better than being a serpent in the road, I guess. But this is heavy stuff. And Joseph is not young, and these men that he's talking to are not young men. So it's kind of interesting, kind of wild. We have a little bit left here, but it fits well with where we're going to go on next week's chapter, and that will wrap up Genesis. So I'm going to stop at this point.
And this is kind of befitting of how the brothers treated Joseph from the beginning.
I strongly suspect that Jacob is not one to forgive. He's not one to forget past offenses. This may be a reason why forgiveness is emphasized so much in the New Testament, because the lack, very much so, but also the weight of sin and excuse me, and the continued burden. I mean, you couldn't just get free of something. People held grudges. It lingered. It stayed with you. The sacrifices for offering a compensation or a payment for sin was a fantastic thing, but still the burden of sin is huge. And it's even here before they even get to the law. It's like you messed up big, and Dad remembers 5 decades later, on his deathbed, he's still going on about it. Now it's all negative, but it's one of those things that stays. So on that note, we do have a couple of positive things, and I'm going to make this quick so we can get on to the next part of today's services. But we see recognition of wrongdoing, but we also, in the midst of that, we see the recognition of right doing, even with imperfect people. We see a promise of a Messiah. We see a recognition of provision through God in the stuff about Joseph. We also see a lot of things in the text that are a good reason when just reading through is one thing, but when you're studying, you see something weird, like his eyes were dull with wine when it's been saying everything great about him up to that point. Pull up some other translations and kind of compare and see. The wild thing is it's not that there's one perfect translation out there. It's that we've been gifted with so many so that we can get a better idea of the full picture based on how many different people have come up with different ways to phrase the same thing. And that's a really awesome thing. But next week, next week Jacob dies. But next week we wrap up the book of Genesis. We wrap up the last of the things with Jacob. We wrap up the last of the issues with the brothers, and we wrap up Joseph and what Joseph has to say to the Israelites. And then we wrap up the book of Genesis. So until then.